Let's cover a little frame wall terminology. A frame wall is constructed of studs, either wood or metal, and usually sized 2x4 or 2x6. When the stud is placed at the top of the wall, it is called a top plate. The one at the bottom of the wall is called the bottom or sole plate. Vertical studs are placed along the length of the wall, and they are evenly spaced, usually either 16 inches or 24 inches apart, which is measured from the center of one stud to the center of the next. This is called 16 inch on center or 24 inch on center, which is abbreviated as OC. Load-bearing walls may have a double top plate. This is to carry the weight of the ceiling joists and the roof rafters or trusses and distribute that weight to the studs and the bottom plate. However, if the rafters and joists are placed directly above and in line with the studs, then a single top plate can be used instead of a double top plate. This reduces the amount of wood used in the wall, reducing expense and the opportunity for thermal bridging through that wood. Now it's time for a quick English lesson and a look at some more construction terminology. We'll start with a word that's rarely used in America unless you're speaking to surgeons, architects, or code officials. The word is fenestration, pronounced fenestration, and it means an opening. This word comes from the Latin word fenestra, and from an architectural perspective means window or window-like opening, or the design and disposition of windows and other openings in a building. In other words, for our purposes, fenestration refers to windows, doors, and skylights. Let's look at how these openings are created in a wall. Here is our wall with its top plate, bottom plate, and studs, 16 or 24 inches on center. If we want to put a window in this wall, we have to make an opening for it. So we need to figure out where on the wall it will be placed, and windows don't always line up nicely on the studs. Before we can put the window on the wall, we need to create an opening for it. The opening we'll create for the window or for a door or a skylight is called a rough opening, and that uses some additional wood. Of course, we can't have a stud in our window opening, so the load that would have been borne by the missing stud or studs is carried by a piece of wood inserted above the window called a header. The header is basically a beam that is sized to carry the load above the opening that it is spanning. The header is then supported by a stud at each end, and these studs are called jack studs or jacks or trimmers. The jack studs transfer the load carried by the header down to the bottom plate. Full height studs are then nailed to the outside of the jack studs. These are called king studs. The piece of wood that the window sits on is called a saddle or a sill and is attached to the jack studs. We now have the structure for our window's rough opening, and our wall is again structurally sound. However, our drywall installers will not be very happy with the spacing of these studs. So to make the drywall installers happy, we need to put in a couple more short studs whose only purpose is to maintain the on-center spacing of the wall studs. These short studs are called cripples. Now that our rough opening is ready, we can install our window. How does this work for a door rough opening? Well, the process is basically the same for a door. It will have a load-bearing header, load-transferring jack studs, king studs, and upper cripples as needed. The door does not have a saddle or the lower cripples, just the header, cripple, king studs, and jack studs. When you think about the walls and how they're constructed, this building component actually encompasses frame floors, ceiling soffits, and rim and band joists. A wall has studs, a top plate, a bottom plate, but when you turn it on its side, it becomes a ceiling or a frame floor with joists and bands. A soffit is just a short wall, and a rim or band is just the outer edge of a ceiling or a floor. Once you have determined the exterior envelope of the building, the same criteria you apply to any wall will apply to these other areas as well. Fenestrations refers to all the openings in our walls: windows, doors, and skylights. And what is a skylight but a window in the ceiling?